I started sewing when I was 8 and went on to become a home ec teacher. I loved teaching, starting where I grew up in New York State, then moved to Maine in '86 and started teaching in southern Maine. Coming from a teaching family, I thought that I would always be a teacher. I had hoped to supplement my income by writing craft patterns under the business name Heart and Sew. In the early 90s, I designed a King and Queen of Hearts craft pattern. I sold enough of the pattern to pay for itself and make a tiny bit of money, but it turned out that I had only one pattern in me. I needed another idea for supplementing my income. Fortunately, I've always been comfortable with men without resorting to flirting, probably because I grew up as the only girl among 4 brothers. We're all along the back row in the picture. In the early 90s, there were mostly men on my Christmas list. My father, brothers, husband, stepsons, father-in-law, nephews. Christmas was a shopping challenge. My husband, John, was a physics teacher at the school where I taught. I made him a tie with bowling balls for a pendulum demonstration, as well as some holiday-themed ties. At the time, I'd shop at craft fairs looking for gifts for my men, and choices were limited to a $300 lamp or a $2 bookmark. There was a void in the craft market that I could fill with neckties. I did my very first craft fair in '93. I used an office divider covered in shirt fabric, flopped ties over it, and a deck table and market umbrella with ties lying on the table. I had a 15-minute setup and breakdown. I went home that day with more than $1,200 and knew that I had the germ of a business idea. When my stepson was in middle school, he said, "You know, there's this thing called the internet. You could buy a URL with bowtie in it." "What's a URL? I already have an email address." "I don't know, Dan. It's $35. But on his great advice, I bought bowtie.com, and Dan now has his PhD. Meanwhile, I continued doing craft fairs, some as far away as the D.C. area. My booth got more professional, expensive, and time-consuming to set up and break down. Later, because necktie sales were steadily declining, I expanded to include surgical caps and zippered navy jumper jackets. In addition to building the business, after years of trying and lots of medical involvement, I had a baby when I was 40. I kept tending the business, but paying it much less attention. My husband continued teaching, providing reliable income and the all-important health insurance, but he was getting close to retirement. On the horizon, I saw the need for a secure income and health insurance looming. I set my sights on sonography or radiation therapy, the best bangs for the community college buck. I took anatomy and physiology and some nursing courses, did well, but didn't enjoy it. I'm not designed to be in healthcare. So spend money to qualify for a job I didn't want or invest in redesigning the website. Heart and Sew had to go, and bowtie.com became the business identity. It clearly communicates what I do. John and I spent many hours developing the new, simple, and expressive logo. John taught himself how to take all of the product pictures and Photoshop them so that they are consistent, and I post them on the site. Tying a bow tie is just like tying your shoe, and just like men who wear neckties, most men who regularly wear bow ties tie their own. For people new to bow ties, I came up with a set of tying instructions that are printed in reverse, so you pin them to your shirt and read them in the mirror as you're learning to tie your bow tie. My original site, designed in '94 for free by a friend, was not an e-commerce site. It was an antique by the time it was redesigned in 2013. Customers had to print out an order form and send me a check in the mail. The new site allows for online ordering and buyers to make customized choices. The baby girl, who was born in 2002, is now in charge of gift card production. For customers ordering gifts, like a florist, I will include a card with their handwritten sentiment. If someone requests a box with their order, I include a blank gift card with the box. At the 2013 Clam Festival in Maine, a customer asked if I could do specific locations on bow ties for her wedding. I suspected I could, wasn't really sure, but said a firm and confident yes. I'm so happy I did. Her wedding was featured in Maine Magazine's wedding issue of 2015. Those were my first location ties. Another bride wanted neckties for her Boothbay Harbor wedding. These ties are from a single sailing chart. When the groomsmen line up from west to east, they will recreate the entire chart. The bow tie for the groom features the couple's favorite spot, Spruce Point. This is a single bow tie featuring 2 different locations depending on how it is tied. It was for a doctor doing his residency in Chapel Hill. He grew up on one of the streets shown on the New Jersey bow tie. He bought a house in Carborough, which, as luck of the map would have it, ended up at the center of the tied Chapel Hill bow, which also features the hospital of his residency. One bow tie, 2 ways to tie it for 2 different looks. I am really proud of this design. This time, I intentionally designed it so that the peak of Sugarloaf Mountain appears at the center of each of the 2 different bows. This tie was a wife's anniversary gift to her husband. She wanted to highlight 4 different map locations that were important to the couple's relationship. The challenge? The 4 locations were on 3 different maps that I had to smoothly marry together. On the back is the key to what the different colored hearts represent. When a friend posted her son's artwork, The Chess King, on Facebook, I couldn't stop thinking about it because I loved the art and knew that it would make a great tie. I had to up my Photoshop game to figure out how to make it work. With the artist's permission, my friend had the piece scanned, and I made it work in both a necktie and a bow tie. A retiring Coast Guard officer wanted his ship put on a bow tie for his 13-year-old son upon the officer's retirement. What's most impressive about this design is that it ties so that the words Coast Guard line up and read clearly on the tied bow tie. Had you asked me when I was teaching if I had an entrepreneurial bone in my body, I would have snickered and responded with an emphatic no. It turns out that I would have been wrong.